have spent years inside classrooms, not as a student, as a teacher. I have stood at the front, delivered lessons, and watched children work incredibly hard to become exactly what the system asked them to be. Good grades, good universities, good jobs at good companies. And for a long time that felt like success. Then something happened that none of us saw coming. The jobs those children had spent their entire childhoods preparing for, the stable, prestigious, office-based careers that was supposed to be the reward for all that hard work, started disappearing. Not slowly, overnight. AI didn't just change the job market, it made us realize something deeply uncomfortable. We have been preparing our children for a world that no longer exists. Students, bright, hard-working people who did everything right, face redundancy in their 30s because a tool trained on data can now do in seconds what they spent years learning to do. They weren't lazy. They weren't underprepared by the old definition. They were perfectly prepared for a future that simply didn't arrive. And that's the thing about the future. We don't know what it holds. We never did, but we're only now being forced to admit it. The schools that shaped me and that I then worked inside were built on a quiet, unspoken assumption that if you master the right subjects, memorize the right content, and compete hard enough for the right credentials, the world will reward you with stability. That assumption is now broken, not bending, broken. So when I had my son, and I started thinking seriously about what kind of education I actually wanted for him, I stopped asking the questions schools are built around. How do I prepare him to compete? And started asking a completely different one. How do I prepare him for a future I cannot predict? Because that's the real job now. Not raising a child who can answer the questions on this year's exam. Raising a human being who can face questions that don't exist yet. Someone who is curious enough to keep learning when the landscape shifts. Resilient enough to rebuild when something they worked hard for disappears. Creative enough to find opportunity in disruption rather than be buried by it. Grounded enough in who they are that they don't need the world to stay the same in order to be okay. That is not what classrooms are designed to produce. I say that with enormous respect for the teachers inside them. I was one. But a system built around standardized curricula, fixed syllabuses, and exam performance simply cannot deliver the thing that matters most right now: adaptability. So I made a decision that surprised almost everyone who knows me. I decided to homeschool my son, not because I want to shelter him from the world, but because I want to give him something schools are structurally unable to give: a holistic upbringing that prepares him not for a specific future, but for any future. One that builds technical literacy alongside emotional resilience, independent thinking alongside collaboration, a love of learning that doesn't stop when the exam is over. In this video, I want to take you through exactly how I got there, the questions I asked as a teacher, the different education philosophies I looked at, and why, after all of it, I came to believe that the most radical thing I could do for my son was also the most logical. The questions that wouldn't leave me alone. When you are a teacher, you see the education system from a perspective most parents never get. You don't just see the polished version that gets presented at open days and in school brochures. You see the pressure on curriculum coverage over genuine understanding. You see the child who grasped the concept last week getting rushed forward because the class has to move on. You see the child who already understood it 3 weeks ago sitting bored while everyone else catches up. You see what standardized testing does to both children and teachers, how it narrows what gets taught to what gets examined, how creativity and curiosity get squeezed out by the time constraints of a national curriculum. And you see the sheer impossibility of one teacher, however skilled and however dedicated, truly meeting the individual needs of 30 different children, all at different stages, with different learning styles, different strengths, and different struggles. I never stopped believing in teachers. Teachers work incredibly hard, under incredibly difficult conditions, and most of them genuinely care. But I did start questioning whether the structure they are forced to operate within is actually the best way for children to learn. And once I had my son, once this became personal, that question became impossible to ignore.
The education systems I compared. There is more than one way to educate a child. Before I made any decision, I did what teachers do. I researched. I looked at every major approach to education, both within formal systems and outside them. Here is what I found. 1. Traditional/conventional schooling standardized curriculum, age-grouped classes, structured timetables, formal assessment. The system most of us grew up in, and the system I taught within. Consistent, measurable, socially structured. Works well for many children. Struggles with individual pace and learning style. Teacher-to-student ratio is its fundamental limitation. 2. Montessori method developed by Dr. Maria Montessori in the early 1900s. Child-led learning, mixed-age classrooms, hands-on materials, intrinsic motivation over grades, focus on independence and natural curiosity, strong research backing, excellent for early years and primary.
Develops self-regulation and love of learning. Limited availability and often high cost in formal settings. 3. Charlotte Mason method. 19th century British educator Charlotte Mason believed children learn best through living books, nature study, narration, and short focused lessons. No textbooks, real literature, real experiences, real nature. Develops genuine love of reading and learning. Highly adaptable at home. Strong on language, history, and arts. Requires parental involvement and curated resources. 4. Classical education based on the ancient trivium. Grammar, knowledge, logic, reasoning, rhetoric, expression. Teaches children how to think, not just what to think. Heavy emphasis on history, philosophy, Latin, and great literature. Produces exceptionally strong thinkers and communicators, more structured than other homeschool methods. Suits academically oriented families well. 5. Waldorf/Steiner education founded by Rudolf Steiner. Follows child development stages, artistic, imaginative, and practical learning in early years, gradually introducing academics, strong arts integration, seasonal rhythms, no screens, beautifully holistic approach. Delayed academic pressure suits some children well. Less standardized, can make university preparation more complex. 6. Unschooling. The most radical departure. No curriculum, no set lessons, complete child-led learning based entirely on natural curiosity and interest. The child directs everything, the parent facilitates. Works remarkably well for highly self-motivated children with very engaged parents. Requires significant trust in the process, not for everyone, and not what I am choosing. After working through all of these, I kept coming back to one question. Which of these approaches actually does what a good education should do? Develop a child's natural love of learning, respect their individual pace, build genuine understanding rather than surface knowledge, and prepare them for a world that values curiosity, creativity, and independent thinking. For me, the answer pointed clearly in one direction. The conclusion, a teacher reaches after looking at everything. Homeschooling is not one of the methods I listed above. It's a container that can hold any of them. You can homeschool using Montessori principles. You can homeschool using Charlotte Mason's living books approach. You can blend classical structure with Waldorf creativity. That flexibility is itself one of the most powerful things about it. But the deeper reason I chose homeschooling comes directly from what I observed as a teacher. The single greatest limitation of every formal school system, regardless of how good the school is, regardless of how skilled the teachers are, is the ratio. 1 adult, 30 children. That ratio makes genuine individualization almost impossible.
Homeschooling removes that constraint entirely. Formal school system, 1 teacher to 25 to 35 children, fixed pace, class moves together, standardized curriculum for all, learning measured by test performance, 6 to 8 hours in a fixed location, social time limited to break periods, teacher knows child for 1 year, homeschooling, 1 parent to 1 child, total focus, child's pace, move when truly ready, curriculum shaped around the child, learning measured by genuine mastery, 3 to 4 focused hours, rest is living, social time by design, varied, real, parent knows child for life. As a teacher, I can tell you that one-to-one instruction is not just slightly better than classroom teaching. Research suggests it produces learning outcomes 2 to 3 standard deviations higher. That is not a marginal difference. That is a fundamentally different educational experience. And as a parent, as this child's parent, I know my son better than any teacher ever could. I know how he thinks, what he finds fascinating, where he gets frustrated, and what makes something click for him. That knowledge is the most powerful teaching resource in the world. And homeschooling lets me actually use it. What homeschooling actually offers the benefits. No school prospectus will tell you about one. Learning at the right pace, his pace. If he masters something in 2 days, we move on. If something takes 2 months, we take 2 months. No child gets labeled slow or held back because the system can't flex around them. The curriculum serves the child, not the other way around. 2. Learning built around his interests. A child who loves dinosaurs can learn maths through counting fossils, learn reading through paleontology books, learn geography through where different species lived. Genuine interest is the most powerful accelerant in learning. Schools almost never get to use it. Homeschooling almost always can. 3. Preserving the love of learning. This is the one I care about most. Children are born curious. They are natural learners. Watch any 2-year-old and you will see relentless, joyful, self-directed exploration. Somewhere between that toddler and a bored 15-year-old who hates school, something gets destroyed. Homeschooling gives us the best chance of protecting it. 4. Deeper values and character development. Homeschooling gives us time, real time, to talk about the things that matter. Ethics, empathy, resilience, how to handle failure,
how to think critically about what they read and hear. These things get squeezed out of formal schooling by the demands of the curriculum. At home, they become part of every single day. 5. Flexibility that formal schooling cannot match. We can travel and learn through the world itself. We can follow a documentary rabbit hole for 3 days because it lit something up in him. We can start at 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. or after breakfast. We can take a week off when something important happens in our family and make it up in our own time. Education becomes woven into life, not separated from it. 6. Protection from unhealthy social dynamics. This one is sensitive, but as someone who spent years in schools, I will say it honestly. The social environment of a classroom is not always healthy, especially in the earlier years. Bullying, social hierarchies, peer pressure to underperform, these are real. Homeschooling doesn't mean isolation. It means choosing the social environments your child is part of, rather than placing them in one by default. What this channel is a teacher learning to be something more important. I want to be clear about something before I wrap up. Having been a teacher does not mean I have homeschooling figured out. They are genuinely different things. Teaching a classroom of 30 is not the same as educating one child who is your own, in your home, with all the love and complication that brings. My background means I understand curriculum design, learning theory, and child development. It means I can research educational methods with some depth. But I am still at the beginning of this specific journey, and I think that combination of professional background and genuine beginner's humility is exactly what this channel should be. Every week I will go deep on one aspect of homeschooling, the methods, the practicalities, the curriculum choices, the daily rhythms, the social questions, the legal landscape, the resources that are worth your time and the ones that aren't. I will share what I find, what I try, what works, and what doesn't. If you are a parent who has questions about homeschooling, whether you're just curious or you've already made the decision, subscribe and come with me. You will not get a perfect expert. You will get someone who has spent years studying how children learn, who loves their son more than anything, and who is committed to figuring this out properly. Next week, I'm starting with the question I get asked most. What age should you actually begin homeschooling? As a teacher, I have strong opinions about this, and the research says something that surprises most people. Don't miss it. I spent years watching the system from the inside. I watched brilliant, curious children get processed through a machine that was never designed around them as individuals, and I made a promise to myself and to my son that his education would be different. Not perfect, not without challenges, but genuinely his. If something in this video resonated with you, if you've had doubts about the system, if you've wondered whether there's another way, if you're standing exactly where I was standing not long ago, leave a comment. Tell me where you are in this journey. Tell me what question is sitting heaviest on your mind right now. I read every single comment, and your questions will shape what this channel covers next. Subscribe, and I'll see you next week.